This isn't. You know, there's 7 fences that come up quickly down the far side. Then there's a fairly sharp bend into the home straight. They do get a bit of head of steam up heading to 3 out and today around it, and obviously quite a stiff finish. But it's not like Newbury. It'll ask a question or two of him, I think.
And we saw that he didn't have tactical speed in Grade 1 company at a track like Kempton when he was 3rd in the Corto Star.
Yes, he didn't, and really that's the only time, isn't it? And 3 miles on good ground on a flat track did seem to catch him out, and he was then staying on near the finish. I mean, there's no doubt about his stamina.
No, absolutely not.
And he kept giving the impression that he could be just about a Gold Cup winner, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's clearly a Gold Cup prospect. He's in the King George this season. We were discussing Santini earlier. That's, of course, talk is cheap in shot. We'll come back to him in a moment. But just to finish off Santini, just the 3 tries over fences last season, finishing with that excellent second in the RSA chase, where he's only just beaten by half a length by top of the game. Off the back of what had been an interrupted preparation when they were preparing for the race, he pulled a shoe off when schooling, had to have a poultice on his foot, and then Nick Henderson was getting back for the race and he had a setback again.
Though, considering all that, he did remarkably well to get beaten half a length in the RSA, and although the form has now, in some ways you could look at it, started to unravel, at the time it looked like a proper renewal of the race, and I'm not prepared to assume that it wasn't yet.
Neither am I, very much not. I think it was, as you said earlier, the right horses who came towards the fore, and it was a really good battle between him and top of the game, and Delta Work finished off strongly as well, and the 3 of them looked to have it between them going into the race and had it between them in the race itself. So an exciting Gold Cup prospect, Santini. But Talk is Cheap, as you mentioned, had been doing pretty well, had been learning all the time as a novice chaser last season before he came back and won the Bet365 Gold Cup, striding away from them, and obviously he's totally unexposed over that kind of trip.
Yes, so what plans they'll have with him, I'm not sure. I mean, it's a stepping stone for all of them in many ways, and for him, he might have pretensions for the longer chases, but I mean, he would have won the Bet365 wherever they stopped it, really. It was just a matter when Wayne Hutchinson said go, and he decided not to say go until the last fence, and for what's meant to be a competitive race, he turned it into a 1-horse doddle. That was off 145. I mean, the handicap has now got him at 157, so he's only, according to the official marks, £6 inferior to Santini, and he receives 2 this afternoon. So it's not a million miles short of it.
No, indeed. And for Silly Edition, this is probably the toughest assignment of his career.
Well, yes, but he's done well. Nice to see that he's a graduate from British pointing in the north, and he's just made his way very steadily and very pleasantly through his hurdling and now his chasing career, and he's got a mark of 150, which means in one sense he might be quite hard to place, but it's a nice
problem to have.
Yeah, exactly, rather than are we ever going to get a race out of this wretched beast.
Of course, Nicky Henderson has used this race, as I mentioned earlier, to launch some really good chasers at the start of their season. 2 seasons ago, Mike Bite and Terrafor, who didn't do so well, had his issues that became apparent in this race last year. Yes, he was a severe disappointment that in the contest. But as you say, the trainer likes to set off what he considers a proper horse in this contest, and graduation chases always get small fields, but they have their place, I think. Well, they are the building blocks to the bigger races in the end of the season, the middle and the end part of the season.
Although, of course, if they didn't have them, perhaps some of them would take on the major handicaps under big weights.
Maybe. So, an exciting race, this intermediate chase, 4 runners, and the flag is up. Let's enjoy it in the company of Richard Hoyles.
Yeah, fascinating. Always nice to see high-profile horses, particularly novices from last year, take their first feet on the season to see whether or not they can progress through to top-class ranks. Certainly the RSA looked pretty strong last year, so it'll be interesting to see how they fare. Off and racing for the Virgin Bet Future Stars intermediate chase, and early on it's now McGinty who leads Santini down towards the first of what will now be 20 fences, 2 less than preceding because of the absence of the pond fence, down to 20. Talk is Cheap Last of the 4 over it, and they make the turn into the back straight, and out in front now McGinty leads. Santini is in second place with 2 lengths back to Steely Edition, a half then to Talk Is Cheap, as they turn into the back straight, 7 fences in front of them. Now McGinty approaching fence number 2. Santini in second, 4 lengths to Steely Edition and Talk Is Cheap. Now McGinty was a little hesitant on the approach towards the second, and as a result was joined by Santini. Short run to the next. And both were out jumped by Steely Edition in third. Talk Is Cheap in 4th place, so they close up slightly, and Santini just rustled up, I think, to attack this fence, and as a result produces a far more fluent lead. He'd almost slowed to now McGinty's pace over them, and as a result Nico de Boinville wanted a little bit more exuberance on the approach. Now McGinty pushed up between fences but is losing ground at the obstacles. This is the water jump, and now McGinty is over from Santini, who again jumps past and briefly takes the lead. Steely Edition in third, with Talk Is Cheap last of the 4. So heading then towards the railway fences, and out in front now McGinty on the approach to it. Takes it that one a length clear from Santini. And once again Steely Edition and Talk Is Cheap jumped better or faster than the 2 in front and closed the gap as a result. So Santini on the outside of now McGinty, Steely Edition and Talk Is Cheap last of the railway fences, and they all pop over that. So out in front now McGinty leads from Santini in second place, Steely Edition in third and Talk Is Cheap in 4th place. So having closed up on occasions, they exit the back straight pretty much in the same order and with the same distances between them as they entered it. And out in front now McGinty. He's begun to warm to his jumping task over the last couple. Santini, Nico de Boinville just changed his hands and pushed along for a stride or 2, keeping the horse on his mettle. And then in third is Steely Edition and Talk Is Cheap. So they're racing now around the side of the pond fence, emitted due to the low level of the sun. So the 2 fences up the home straight will be next, a plain one followed by an open ditch on this circuit. As out in front now McGinty leads for Tom O'Brien. So now McGinty from Santini in second place, grey jacket for Nico de Boinville, Steely Edition for Mihal Nolan and Talk Is Cheap for Tom Cannon. And again, the 4 of them are all over well. Now McGinty, Santini in second place as they head towards the second of the ditches. Now McGinty on the left, Santini on the right, Steely Edition and Talk Is Cheap. Now they all jump that ditch well. So now McGinty up past us, jumping far more fluently than he did in the early stages. Santini in second place, still lobbing along, but Nico de Boinville at times just keen to keep him moving forward, and leads by a couple of lengths over Steely Edition. And Talk Is Cheap in 4th. So now McGinty out in the front end. Santini again just nudged along for a stride or 2 by Nico de Boinville. Keep tabs on the leader. There was a slight increase in the pace there, but still a relative term. Steely Edition and Talk Is Cheap. So they run downhill. Circuit under their belts, half of the jumping done. And out in front now McGinty leads Santini, and again just bumped along for a stride or 2. In third place Steely Edition and Talk Is Cheap, last of the quartet. So they level up towards this fence on the side of the racecourse. And out in front now McGinty from Santini, Steely Edition and Talk Is Cheap. Now McGinty over that. Steely Edition jumped up really well on the inside of Santini. Again, just pushed into the bridle on occasions. Snatches would be too strong for it, but he's just switching on and off at times. Nico de Boinville is just anxious to keep that momentum going as they turn into the back straight. Now McGinty from Santini, half a length between the pair, Steely Edition. And still at the back is Talk Is Cheap. First down the back, and again, as the circuit to go, now McGinty is joined by Santini. 3 lengths to Steely Edition. Talk Is Cheap continuing to spectate from the back. Front 2 were good there, and Steely Edition's first mistake of the race. Into the bottom of the fence, not too much time to recover as we reach the ditch, and Santini really attacked that fence, and the front 2 just beginning to open up. Santini by a neck from now McGinty as they head towards the water. The gap between the front and back 2 has widened to about 4 to 5 lengths to Steely Edition and a couple of lengths to Talk Is Cheap as we head towards the water jump. Now McGinty and Santini over together. Steely Edition, Talk Is Cheap has joined him now, so they're racing in 2 pairs as we head towards the railway fences. So with the pond fence omitted, there'll be 5 left to take here. Santini on the inside. Now McGinty makes a slight mistake. Talk Is Cheap now begins to move forward. Middle ones of the railway, Santini. And now McGinty. Talk Is Cheap now takes 3rd place. Steely Edition in 4th. This is the last fence in the back straight. Santini reached for it and got to the other side well. Now McGinty pushed along. Talk is Cheap just bumped along now as Santini takes over from Now McGinty. Now can Talk is Cheap get on the leader's tail? In fourth place, Steely Edition as they make their way round the final bend. Santini, Now McGinty hanging in there on the inside, and Talk is Cheap has managed to get on terms now with the front two. Steely Edition comes next. They will bypass the pond fence, so still a quarter of a mile before they'll leave the ground again. Santini in the grey jacket. Now McGinty. Talk is Cheap continues to track Santini, and then Steely Edition, who has closed up and was in about 3 lengths of the leader. Santini on the outside. Now McGinty still hanging in there. In third place, Talk is Cheap as they'll spin the corner and move to the second last. And now Nico de Boinville just asking Santini, who's been a little idle through this race, to try and go and seal it. Now McGinty on the inside. Santini is away, slightly the better. Talk is Cheap hasn't been able to keep tabs on the front two, and now the climb towards the last. Santini begins to assert, just looking around him slightly in front. Now McGinty still in there on the inside at the last. Santini jumps it big, but now McGinty was right alongside. Santini heads up the hill by a neck. Now McGinty about half a length down, but fighting back. Santini idling. Now McGinty, Santini. From Now McGinty, Santini has scrambled home. Did absolutely no more than was necessary to beat Now McGinty. Very close for third. They were very tired, the last two. That's between Talk is Cheap and Steely Edition.
Well, narrowly, and a photo finish officially called, but Santini has won. Scrambled home, as Richard said. A double for Nico de Boinville and Nicky Henderson after a narrow margin success in our previous race on Keen On. Now McGinty's won a stormer. We'll talk about how the two of them went round through the race in a moment, but Tom O'Brien and Stuart Evans will be very proud of his second and beaten back into third and fourth. Talk is Cheap and Steely Edition. Lots to say about this race, even though there were just the 4 runners. Santini has managed to win, however.
Piece of cake, wasn't it? Odds backers layers were never worried. Yes, there is a lot to say, because even though the first two are the only two concerned, with the other two really weakening badly. Here we go.
Finish for first place. First, number 1, Santini.
Confirmed
Second.
that Santini has won.
Both of them didn't do everything right by any means, did they?
That's an understatement.
Oh, I know. They're sort of quite odd contest.
Yes.
I'm not at all surprised that he's had to work very hard to win. I didn't think this would necessarily be an ideal race for him, but you are left with 1 or 2 questions, aren't you?
Richard called him idle at times. He highlighted that Nico de Boinville was having to push him into the bridle on several occasions.
Yes, he was, and he might just have been a bit rusty, but then Now McGinty wasn't doing everything. I wonder whether Now McGinty's was putting him off, because he was looking around and not looking as if he was 100% engaged, and yet over the last 2 fences he certainly was.
Yes. I mean, in the early stages, Now McGinty was kind of backing off his fences. He had a good leer at the racecourse exit. Yep,
all of that, and he sort of. I did think if Talk is Cheap could raise an effort here, he might be in trouble. I certainly didn't think Now McGinty was going to stay in, pushing him all the way. As I say, I'm not particularly disappointed by Santini's performance, but at the same time, you want to see something a lot better next time.
Talk is Cheap. The effort was brief here, wasn't it? He got on their tail and then he wasn't able to sustain it.
Yes, it's possible that in the end the ground might have found him out, because he has weakened quite quickly, and the other one,
Steely Edition. You'd be far from disheartened, wouldn't you?
Well, but again, he got very tired and he's absolutely scrambled over the last.
I know, but the way he's gone through the race, again, says promising things. Not to the level of Santini, obviously, but still.
No. But they both ended up getting really, really tired. But anyway, the other two have set down. Every time you think Santini's going to win by 3/4 of a length, the runner-up comes back. Now McGinty makes it really hard for him.
Yeah, now McGinty, as you say, keeps pulling something out. You think Santini's got him, now he's got him, but only in the line could you be absolutely sure.
And there was, clear blue water between them at the Cheltenham Festival. And, ahead this afternoon, and now McGinty's clearly run a career best and probably ruined his handicap mark into the process.
Let's take a look at this head-on. You'll be able to see Torquay's Chief and Steely Edition getting very tired in the closing stages, and we'll also see this battle between Santini and Now Begin to You at this point in the race. Fancied it.
Yes, he did. Very, more than he had done at any other season. Santini just still looks like a sort of, oh, well, it's all a bit of an effort and getting myself organised, and I haven't been racing for 7 months and all that, but I will just win.
Yes, again, a little bit close together at the end, just a mild brush against each other, but at least it is success for Santini. And as you say, given you expressed some reservations about the track going into this, you had some thoughts that maybe he wouldn't be wondrously impressive.
Yeah,
it's still a building block for the start of the season.
Yeah, he still looks like a major work in progress, doesn't he? Hopefully it will progress.
It'll be interesting to see what both Nico and Nicky Henderson have to say about that performance. They're just having a good chat about it at the moment, but this is where it was getting very close indeed, and now McGinty trying to pull something out and forcing him all the way to the line, but now they're in the winner's enclosure, and Santini, who's entered in the King George, as I mentioned, has started this season off, and he is a powerful, big frame of a horse.
He really is. He really is. Hopefully he can only get better.
So, I'm just wanting to hang on to see if I can get Nico live on his way to weigh in, but I'm assuming there's going to be posing for photos next. Do you think they'll go to the King George? It wasn't. I mean, the track wasn't ideal last time.
It wouldn't be for me.
No, nor me.
No, I'm not quite sure where I'd want to go. It's the obvious point you go with a horse you hope to go to a Gold Cup with, but I don't think the course really suits him.
No. So, further thoughts from Nico de Boinville before he goes and weighs in. And just lots of food for thought from this opening race. The press are now going to gather around Nicky Henderson, and hopefully we'll be able to just stop Nico briefly. He's on his way over to me, I think, right now. I think he is.
We hope he is.
Yeah, we do hope. I'm hanging on in the hope that I will get a quick chat with Nico. It is live TV, Jonathan. Thank you for pointing this out.
Here he comes.
Nico, can I just stop you briefly?
Yeah, no problem. Sorry about that.
No worries. Explain to me what went on out there, because at times you're having to sort of wake him up and push him into the bridle.
Yeah, it was just a bit laboured. He's a funny horse because he doesn't do a great deal at home, so you never quite know where exactly you are. And right now we're just trying to gauge all our horses where they are and how they are. And they've only been up the grass a few times because of the weather, obviously. But now the rains have come, we can really kick on with them. But I'd say he probably just needed it slightly. But to be fair to him, he's grounded out and he's won, which is the main thing.
Yeah, so stuffy, I suppose, is what it's...
Exactly. There are a few times where I had to really get after him, and then he'd come off it, on it, off it.
Was the track ideal?
He wants a galloping track like this. He needs that. Round Kempton, I'd say if you'd run the race again round Kempton, I think we would have been beaten. But no, it was a nice start, but plenty to work on.
Okay. And Keenon earlier as a good start to his hurdling career?
Really happy with him. He's a lovely horse by Kate Tara, and great for the Queen as well. But he's done it the right way in ground, which I thought he'd like. Going down to the post, I thought, he's relishing this ground. But no, good way to do it, and it's hard work, and it was just important to hold on to him turning into the straight, and then you could go when you wanted.
Congratulations on both wins.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
In the end, Santini was returned the 3-1 on favourite to win that intermediate chase, beating Now McGinty at 12-1 by just a head. They were 30 lengths clear of the third. All four ran.
Let's hear from our winning jockey then, Mark Walsh. Mark, what a great day you're having. Come to Andy Dufresne in just a sec, but what about this fella? There can't be many more enjoyable horses to ride over a fence, are there?
Yeah, he's brilliant. To ride in 2 milers, jump as quick and as well as him, it's a joy to ride him.
And we were just saying, watching the race, I mean, the others were actually jumping well in behind, yet he was still taking ground off them. That is some asset to have, isn't it?
He's just so quick. He's so quick. When he sees the fence, he attacks it and goes and just wings it, and he's away from the back of it so quick.
What was the feeling going into today? Did you think he could put it up to those younger types?
I was worried about the ground, to be honest, because all his best form is on good ground.